The whispers followed Beatrice Hartwell everywhere she went. At 27 years old, she had become what society cruelly called unmarriageable. The mothers in the drawing rooms pitied her. The young ladies thanked God they were not her. The gentlemen looked past her as if she were invisible. Beatrice had learned to live with it. She spent her days in the gardens of Hartwell Manor, tending to roses that never judged her plain face or her quiet nature. She read books that took her to worlds where women like her could be heroines. She painted landscapes that captured beauty she could never possess herself. Her sister Charlotte had married a viscount 3 years ago. Her younger sister Margaret was already engaged to a baron's son. Both were beautiful, charming, and everything Beatrice was not. And her mother had long ago stopped introducing her at balls. Her father spoke to her only about household accounts, treating her more like a housekeeper than a daughter. But Beatrice had made peace with her fate. She would live quietly at Hartwell Manor. She would care for her aging parents. She would become the spinster aunt who told stories to her sister's children. It was not the life she had dreamed of as a girl, but it was a life she could accept. Everything changed on a gray October morning when the solicitor arrived. Beatrice was in the library reading when her father summoned her. This was unusual. Her father rarely wanted to see her. She found him in his study with her mother, both wearing expressions she could not read. A thin man in black stood beside them holding a leather case. Her father's voice was tight when he spoke. "Aunt Josephine is dead." Beatrice felt her heart crack. Aunt Josephine had been the only person who truly saw her. The only one who spoke to her as if she mattered. The only one who told her she was worth something beyond marriage and beauty. They had exchanged letters every week for 10 years. Aunt Josephine had traveled the world after her own husband died, sending Beatrice stories from Paris and Rome and Constantinople. The solicitor cleared his throat. "Miss Hartwell, your aunt left a will with very specific instructions. Lady Josephine has left you her entire fortune, the townhouse in London, the estate in Kent, her investments and jewels, everything." Beatrice could not breathe. Her mother gasped. Her father went pale. "But there is a condition," the solicitor continued. He pulled out a document and began to read. "My dear niece Beatrice has been overlooked and undervalued her entire life. I leave her my fortune so she may know independence and freedom. However, I also leave her one final gift: a husband." The room went silent. The solicitor kept reading. "I have arranged for Beatrice to marry Alexander Blackwood, the Duke of Ashford. The marriage contract was signed by his father and myself 20 years ago, when Alexander was merely a boy, and I was his godmother. The contract states that if I should die while both parties remain unmarried, Alexander must marry my chosen bride within 3 months, or forfeit his entire inheritance to charity. Beatrice must agree to the marriage or forfeit my estate. If both agree and marry, they each keep their inheritances. If they marry and later separate, they keep what they brought to the marriage, but nothing more." Yet Beatrice felt the world tilt. The Duke of Ashford was a legend in London society, wealthy beyond measure, handsome beyond reason. He had rejected every eligible lady in England for the past 5 years. Mothers schemed to catch his attention. Daughters swooned when he entered a room. And now he was being forced to marry her. The unmarriageable Beatrice Hartwell. Her mother found her voice first. "This is absurd. Josephine has gone too far. The Duke will never agree. But he must, the solicitor said quietly, or he loses everything. The late Duke was a gambling man who left debts. Young Alexander rebuilt the fortune through his own efforts. But the legal documents are clear. The original Ashford wealth came partially from Lady Josephine's family. She had the right to make this condition. Beatrice's father turned to her. You will refuse this madness." Beatrice looked at the document in the solicitor's hands. Freedom, independence, a fortune of her own. All she had to do was trap a man who would despise her into a marriage he did not want. She should refuse. It was cruel. It was wrong. But something stirred inside her, a small flame of defiance. Why should she spend her life invisible and unwanted when Aunt Josephine had given her this chance? Why should she protect the pride of a duke who had never noticed her existence while she faded into nothing? "I accept," Beatrice heard herself say. Her mother cried out. Her father slammed his hand on the desk. The solicitor simply nodded. "Very well. I will inform the Duke. You have 3 months from today. The wedding must take place, or both inheritances will be dissolved." That night, yet Beatrice stood at her window looking at the stars. She had agreed to marry a man who would hate her, a man who was being forced into marriage with the one woman in England no one wanted. Tomorrow, the Duke would receive the news. Tomorrow, her name would be in every scandal sheet in London. Tomorrow, everything would change. She pressed her hand against the cold glass. "Aunt Josephine, what have you done to me?" But deep down, beneath the fear, Beatrice felt something she had not felt in years. Hope. Part 2. The letter arrived at Ashford House on a morning when Alexander Blackwood was reviewing contracts for his shipping investments. His butler brought it on a silver tray, with an expression that warned of trouble. Alexander broke the seal and read in silence. Then he read it again, because the words made no sense. And then he stood up so fast, his chair fell backward. "This is impossible," he said to the empty room. But the legal documents were real. The signatures were authentic. His godmother, the woman who had bounced him on her knee as a child and sent him books from her travels, had betrayed him in the most spectacular way possible. He was to marry Beatrice Hartwell, a woman he had never met, a woman his godmother described in her personal letter as kind, intelligent, and worthy of love, but whom society has declared unmarriageable due to nothing but cruel superficiality. Alexander crumpled the letter in his fist. He had spent 5 years avoiding the marriage trap. 5 years refusing the scheming mothers and their calculating daughters. 5 years building his fortune and his freedom. And now an old woman had destroyed it all from beyond the grave. And he called for his horse and rode to his solicitor. There must be a way out. A loophole. Something. His solicitor, a practical man named Graves, reviewed everything and shook his head. "The contract is binding, Your Grace. Your father signed it. Lady Josephine's family money was used to save Ashford Estates when you were a boy. She had the legal right to make this condition. You marry Miss Hartwell within 3 months, or you lose the Ashford fortune. All of it." Alexander wanted to put his fist through the wall. "How much would I lose?" Graves tallied the numbers. Nearly everything. The original estates. The investments your father made with Josephine's family funds. It represents about 60% of your total worth. You would keep what you earned yourself these past years, but the Ashford legacy would be gone, and the title would remain, but the wealth behind it would vanish. Alexander left the office feeling sick. He could survive on 40%. He would still be wealthy by any measure. But Ashford House would have to be sold. The tenants who depended on the estate would suffer. The charities he funded would collapse. Everything his family had built for generations would disappear. All because he refused to marry a woman he did not know. He spent 3 days alone, thinking. On the 4th day, he made his decision. He would meet her. He would see what kind of woman could inspire his godmother to orchestrate this madness. Beatrice received the message on a rainy afternoon. The Duke of Ashford requests the honor of calling upon Miss Hartwell tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Her mother went into a frenzy. The house was cleaned until it sparkled. New curtains were ordered. Beatrice was dragged to the dressmaker for a new gown, even though everyone knew no gown would make her beautiful. Charlotte arrived with advice. Smile, but not too much. Speak, but not too often. Agree with everything he says. You must make him believe this was his choice, not a trap. Beatrice listened to it all and said nothing. She knew the truth. The Duke was coming to assess the damage, to see what he was being forced to accept. No amount of smiling or agreeing would change the fact that she was not what any man wanted. When Alexander arrived the next day, Beatrice was waiting in the drawing room. She heard his footsteps in the hall, heard her mother's nervous laughter, heard the butler announce him. Then he walked through the door, and Beatrice forgot to breathe. He was everything the rumors promised, tall and broad-shouldered, dark hair and darker eyes, a face that belonged in paintings. He moved with the confidence of a man who had never been refused anything in his life. Until now. Their eyes met across the room. Beatrice saw him pause, saw his expression shift as he took in her plain dress and plainer face, saw the moment he understood exactly what his godmother had done to him. She watched him master his reaction, but watched him bow perfectly and greet her parents with flawless courtesy. Watched him turn to her with a smile that did not reach his eyes. Miss Hartwell, I am honored to make your acquaintance. Beatrice rose and curtsied. The honor is mine, Your Grace. Her mother insisted on tea. Charlotte appeared from nowhere to charm and giggle. Her father spoke of business and weather. Through it all, Alexander maintained his polite mask, and Beatrice maintained her silence. Finally, he turned to her parents. Might I have a moment alone with Miss Hartwell? In the garden, perhaps, with the doors open for propriety. Her mother agreed too quickly. Beatrice followed him outside, her heart pounding so hard she thought he must hear it. They walked in silence until they were far enough from the house. Then Alexander stopped and turned to face her, and his mask fell away. I will be honest with you, Miss Hartwell. I do not wish to marry. I have avoided it successfully for years. This situation is not of my choosing. Beatrice met his eyes steadily. Nor is it of mine, Your Grace. I did not ask my aunt to trap you into marriage with me. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, perhaps. Then why did you accept the inheritance with its condition? Because I am 27 years old and have no prospects. Because my family treats me as a burden. Because your godmother offered me freedom, and I was selfish enough to take it, even knowing what it would cost you." Her honesty seemed to shock him. He studied her face as if seeing her for the first time. "You are not what I expected." Beatrice felt a bitter laugh rise in her throat. "I am exactly what everyone expects, Your Grace. I am the unmarriageable daughter, the one men look past, the one who should be grateful for any attention at all. Your godmother has forced you into marriage with the last woman in England you would ever choose. I understand the insult of it." Alexander was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised her. "My godmother was the wisest woman I ever knew. She did nothing without purpose. If she chose you, there was a reason." Beatrice shook her head. "The reason was pity. She pitied me and thought marriage to a duke would save me. She did not consider that marriage without affection is just another kind of prison. Is that what you believe marriage to me would be? A prison?" Beatrice looked at this beautiful, proud man who was being forced to bind himself to her. "What else could it be? You will resent me. I will remind you daily of your lost freedom. We will be two strangers living in quiet misery, counting the years until death releases us." Alexander's jaw tightened. "I have not agreed to marry you, Miss Hartwell. I know, and I release you from any obligation. Refuse the marriage, keep your 40% and your freedom. I will refuse my inheritance as well. We will both walk away. You would give up a fortune?" Beatrice smiled sadly. "I have lived without fortune my entire life. I can continue. But you should not have to sacrifice everything because an old woman played matchmaker from the grave." Alexander stared at her. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. It was a real laugh, surprised and genuine. "You are the first honest person I have spoken to in years. Every word from you is truth, even when it costs you. Even when flattery might serve you better." "Flattery would insult us both," Beatrice said quietly. "You know what I am. I will not pretend otherwise." Alexander stepped closer. "And what are you, Miss Hartwell?" Beatrice lifted her chin. "I am unmarriageable. I am plain and quiet and everything society dismisses. But I am also honest and kind and strong enough to survive being unwanted. Your godmother saw something in me worth saving. I wish I knew what it was." The rain began to fall softly around them. Alexander looked at her with an expression she could not read. Then he spoke words that changed everything. "I will marry you, Miss Hartwell. But I have conditions of my own." Beatrice felt her heart stop. "You will marry me?" Alexander nodded slowly. "But we do this my way. I propose a business arrangement. We marry to satisfy the contract and keep our inheritances. We maintain separate lives. You have your freedom and your fortune. I have mine. We appear together when society demands it. Otherwise, we live as we choose." Beatrice should have felt relief. This was the best possible outcome. Marriage without the pain of pretending affection. Freedom without the burden of unwanted intimacy. But something inside her cracked. Even in marriage, she would still be unwanted, still invisible, just with a grander title attached to her loneliness. "I accept your terms, Your Grace," she said quietly. The wedding was arranged for 6 weeks later. It was a small affair because neither wanted spectacle. Beatrice wore a simple cream dress. Alexander stood beside her with perfect posture and an unreadable expression. They spoke their vows in steady voices. They signed the documents that bound them legally forever. When the vicar pronounced them husband and wife, Alexander kissed her cheek with all the warmth of a business transaction. Beatrice smiled for the guests and felt nothing but emptiness. They traveled to Ashford House in separate carriages. Alexander showed her to her rooms in the East Wing. His rooms were in the West Wing, he explained. A servant would be available if she needed anything. Dinner was at 8, if she wished to join him, but she was free to dine in her rooms if she preferred. Then he bowed and left her standing in the most beautiful bedroom she had ever seen, utterly alone. The first month of marriage passed in silence. Beatrice explored the libraries and gardens. She painted in the conservatory. She managed the household accounts because the housekeeper seemed relieved to have help. Alexander was gone most days, managing his business affairs. When they did meet at dinner, they spoke of weather and books and nothing that mattered. It was exactly what they had agreed to, and it was breaking Beatrice's heart in ways she had not expected. She had thought being unmarriageable meant she did not want marriage. But now, living beside a man who treated her with perfect courtesy and absolute indifference, she understood the difference. She had wanted to be chosen. She had wanted to be seen. She had wanted someone to look at her the way her father once looked at her mother, and before disappointment and duty killed whatever love had existed. One evening, Beatrice was reading in the library when Alexander entered unexpectedly. He stopped when he saw her, as if he had forgotten she existed in his own house. "Forgive me. I did not mean to disturb you. You are not disturbing me. This is your library." Alexander moved to the shelves, selecting a book. Then he paused. "That book you are reading, it was my godmother's favorite." Beatrice looked at the worn cover. "She sent it to me 3 years ago. I have read it a dozen times. What do you love about it?" Beatrice considered the question. No one had ever asked her what she loved. The heroine is not beautiful or charming, but she is brave. She chooses kindness when cruelty would be easier. She builds a life worth living even when the world tells her she is worthless. Alexander sat down across from her. His expression was softer than she had ever seen it. "My godmother used to say that real strength is not about power or beauty. It is about continuing when everything tells you to give up." She was right. They talked until midnight, about book and travel and dreams they had never spoken aloud. When Alexander finally stood to leave, he looked at her with something that might have been regret. "I have been unfair to you, Beatrice." It was the first time he had used her given name. The sound of it in his voice made her chest ache. "You have honored our agreement," she said softly. "The agreement was cruel. I have treated you as an obligation rather than a person. I have given you wealth and title, but withheld simple kindness. My godmother would be ashamed of me." Beatrice felt tears threaten. "You did not want this marriage. I cannot fault you for that." Alexander knelt before her chair, his dark eyes intense. "I did not want marriage to a stranger chosen for me. But these past weeks, I have watched you transform this house. The servants adore you. The gardens bloom under your care. You are kind and thoughtful and honest to a fault. And I have been blind. What are you saying?" He took her hand carefully, as if she might break. "I am saying I would like to know my wife, not as an obligation, not as a business arrangement, but as a person I am beginning to suspect is remarkable." Beatrice pulled her hand away, her heart racing with something between hope and terror. "You pity me now. This is worse than indifference." Alexander's expression turned fierce. "I do not pity you. I am in awe of you. What you agreed to marry a man who made it clear he did not want you. Yet you have never once been bitter or cruel. You have built a life in this house with grace and dignity. You are everything my godmother said you were, and I was too proud to see it." Tears spilled down Beatrice's cheeks. "I am not beautiful. I am not charming. I am still the unmarriageable girl society rejected." Alexander reached up and gently wiped her tears. "You are beautiful to me, not because of your face, but because of your heart. And I am asking, if you can forgive my blindness, for a chance to start again, to build a real marriage, to choose each other, even though we were forced together." Beatrice looked into his eyes and saw truth there, saw regret and hope and something that might become love if given time. "I am afraid," she whispered. "Afraid to hope. Afraid to believe this is real." Alexander stood and pulled her gently to her feet. "Then, let us be afraid together. Let us stumble and learn and build something neither of us expected. Let us prove that my godmother was wiser than both of us." Beatrice felt something unlock inside her chest. The walls she had built around her heart began to crumble. She had spent her life being overlooked and dismissed. But here was a man asking to truly see her. She took his hand. "Then let us start again. Not as Duke and Duchess, not as strangers fulfilling a contract, but as Alexander and Beatrice. Two people learning to choose each other." He smiled, and it was real and warm and meant only for her. "I would like that very much." The road ahead would not be easy. They had wounds to heal and trust to build. But for the first time since her wedding day, Beatrice felt hope bloom in her chest. She had been called unmarriageable. She had been overlooked and undervalued and dismissed. But Aunt Josephine had seen the truth, had known that sometimes the greatest love stories begin not with passion, but with two broken people choosing to heal together. Alexander pulled her close, and Beatrice let herself be held. Let herself believe that being chosen could feel like this, warm and safe and real. They stood together in the library, surrounded by books and soft lamplight, two souls who had been forced together by an old woman's wisdom and were now choosing to stay. And somewhere was smiling.